A Patreon supporter of Shattered History requested that I investigate a series of mysterious and lesser-known subterranean passages located beneath Europe, named the Erdstall Tunnels. There's around 2,000 of these ancient tunnels, with over half of those discovered so far being located under the German state of Bavaria, as well as in Austria. The mystery of the Erdstall Tunnels is intensively discussed in Europe, especially in Germany and Austria, where they're located primarily. Hundreds of well-educated researchers have been investigating the tunnels for decades, and numerous books have been written on the subject. There are dozens of documentaries and YouTube videos about the Erdstall Tunnels, showing how influential the topic has become. Hundreds of articles have detailed every known piece of information regarding the strange tunnels, and yet, none have been able to provide any answers about why they exist. Even some of the most distinguished researchers with doctorate-level credentials have been unable to explain why the Erdstall Tunnels were created. Despite all the attention the Erdstall Tunnels have garnered, and the countless hours of research that respected historians, archaeologists, and geologists have poured into discovering the purpose of these subterranean passages, no one has been able to solve the mystery of the Erdstall Tunnels. Apart from being inexplicable in their purpose, the layout of these tunnels is also perplexing. None of the Erdstall tunnels are connected to each other, and they each only have a single entrance, with the only exit being the same way in. 4 distinct varieties of Erdstall tunnels have been discovered. One type consists of just a single long passageway that does not lead to any other tunnels or chambers. The second type contains several long tunnels above and below each other, which are connected at multiple points by very small circular holes, which are very difficult to squeeze through. The third type of Erdstall tunnel consists of multiple smaller tunnels side by side, which are connected by the same type of narrow circular holes, with rounded trip tunnels at the middle and end of one or more of the passages. The fourth type contains several small chambers connected by multiple passages. The Erdstall tunnels not only range in layout, but also in the size and shape of the tunnels themselves. Some of the tunnel systems are circular in shape, very short in height, and narrow, making it so that explorers must hunch over or crawl through very tight spaces much of the way through. Some tunnels are larger in size, and it is possible to stand fully upright in some sections. Many of these larger tunnels look like caves from the outside, but there are clear signs that they were created artificially, not naturally. Other Erdstall tunnels are wider and more oval in shape, but are often too short in height for an adult human to walk upright inside. Researchers have attempted to explain the purpose and origins of the Erdstall tunnels, but no matter how many times these passages have been explored, no one has been able to explain what they were used for or even who made them. One theory is that they were used as souterrains, or secret escape passages to other locations. The flaw in this theory is that each of the Erdstall tunnels only have a single point of entry, and no separate exits. This means that they do not lead to any other locations above ground, and therefore, they could not have been used as secret passages or escape tunnels. Many of the Erdstall tunnels are also very short in height, so people would be forced to crawl through many sections and squeeze through multiple slip points, which would take much longer than running, which somebody would want to do in a scenario in which an escape passage is necessary. Another theory is that the Erdstall tunnels were used by pagans to secretly worship their gods somewhere the Catholic Church members would not see them. This would not be the case either, though, because no relics, artifacts, engravings, or any other physical evidence have been discovered to suggest that worship rituals have occurred in these tunnels. The lack of archaeological material also rules out the possibility of the tunnels having been used as dwellings or hideouts during wars. Another theory is that the tunnels were used as storage for grains and other types of food. No containers or remains of any food have been found though, and many of the tunnels are too small to have been effective storages. Furthermore, no skeletons or human remains have been found either, ruling out any possibility of the tunnels having been tombs or burial sites. Another theory suggests that the tunnels may have been used for mining. However, there is no evidence whatsoever of mining in any of the Erdstall tunnels. There are no wooden supports, tracks for minecarts, or evidence of ore extraction. Others speculate that they could have been used as storages for ice. However, most of these passages are too long and narrow for ice to have been stored inside. Actual medieval ice houses exist, and they're deep vertical holes that keep cold air down at the bottom. They do not require long access tunnels, they just need to be long enough to prevent warm temperatures outside from reaching the ice inside and melting it. If ice had been stored inside the Erdstall tunnels, there would also be evidence of the ground being wet for long periods of time, in the form of mineral deposits coating the floor of the tunnels and the lower portions of the walls. However, there are no mineral deposits to be found, and therefore, ice was not stored in these tunnels. The age of the Erdstall tunnels is also a complete mystery. Some believe that they were created during the 1400s AD, which is the Middle Ages, based on the radiocarbon dating of charcoal left in a few of the tunnels, which could have easily been left by people who were just exploring the tunnels, not necessarily creating them. The dating of the Erdstall tunnels also comes from the analysis of stones placed in front of and around the entrances of the tunnels. These findings indicate that people during the Middle Ages attempted to seal off some of these tunnels. If these passages had been built by people during the Middle Ages, then why would they have felt the need to seal them off? Strangely, no records have been discovered documenting the creation of the Erdstall tunnels, which is odd because nearly every infrastructure project in Europe was documented during the Middle Ages. Given that there is at least 2,000 of these tunnels across Europe, there would have been documentation if they had been constructed during this time period, because they would have been somewhat of a massive undertaking for some significant purpose. Due to the lack of evidence for these tunnels' construction during the Middle Ages, other researchers have theorized that the Erdstall tunnels could be far older, ranging anywhere between 5,000 to 12,000 years old. Strangely, no archaeological materials that old have been discovered inside the tunnels, suggesting that people did not utilize these caves that long ago. Even the entrances to the tunnels are mysterious. They have been found in a variety of strange locations that seem to have no consistency. Some entrances are located in forests, and others have been found in open fields, and new sections of the tunnels are constantly being exposed. These entrances also range dramatically in size and shape. Some entrances are small, round openings that go straight down into the ground, like manholes. Despite these plunging entrances, no ladders or ropes have been found anywhere inside of or around the tunnels to indicate that people had entered them in the past. Other entrances are dug into the sides of hills and are very easy to spot from a distance, further casting doubt on the theory that the tunnels were made to be secretive escapes. Archaeologists have searched the lengths of many of the Erdstall tunnels to find out what types of tools the builders had used. Unlike the stone walls of many other pre-cataclysmic structures, which show signs of uniform chiseling, saw marks, and refining, researchers have been unable to recognize what sort of tools had dug out these tunnels. Unnatural scourings mark the walls throughout each of the Erdstall tunnels. The erratic patterns of these etches and the irregular shape of the walls and entrances are not consistent with any tool people used during the Middle Ages or on any other pre-cataclysmic structures. Furthermore, consistently wavering ridges continue throughout the length of the majority of these tunnels, which show that they were created artificially, as the excavators dug and pulled out small portions of dirt repeatedly. The walls of the tunnels, which had once been dirt, have since lithified and turned into solid rock. Despite the belief that the Erdstall tunnels are unique in their layout, this is actually not the case. Many similar tunnel systems exist throughout the world, and they even vary in their style, the same way that the Erdstall tunnels do. Some of these tunnels have the same pointed arch design, with the floors flattened as a result of the excavators trampling the ground. Other types of these tunnels can only be entered through a small circular hole, plunging straight into the ground, almost identical to the entrances of many of the Erdstall tunnels. The layout of these other tunnels also consists of long corridors that are connected by small slip points. No artifacts are found inside of any of these tunnels either, nor are there any elaborate designs carved onto the walls. But unlike the Erdstall Tunnels, it is known who made these passages. Many animals, including snakes, wombats, armadillos, warthogs, wolves, and more, regularly dig tunnels into the earth. Apart from the size of these animal-made burrows and dens, they're virtually identical to the Erdstall Tunnels. If the Erdstall Tunnels were much smaller in size, but the same in every other way, there would be no debate that they were created by animals. As I had discussed in a previous video, animals in the ancient past were far larger than they are currently. These giant animals, just like their modern counterparts, dug burrows as a form of shelter. And the only difference between modern animal burrows and the ancient Erdstall Tunnels is that the Erdstall Tunnels are far larger, as many of these extinct megafauna were several times larger than their current descendants. In fact, researchers have discovered hundreds of tunnels confirmed to have been created by ancient megafauna. These burrows that were created by extinct giant animals are referred to as paleoburrows. Hundreds of paleoburrows have been discovered in Brazil alone. Some were made by giant ground sloths that were the size of modern elephants when standing up, while other paleoburrows were created by glyptodons, which are the giant ancestors of armadillos. Just as there are erratic scratch marks inside the Erdstall Tunnels, the same types of scratches were made into the walls of the paleoburrows. And the walls, which were once made of a softer dirt, have since lithified, turning into solid stone. The variety of shapes and layouts of the Erdstall Tunnels indicate that many different species of megafauna created each of these tunnels. This also explains why the tunnels are all independent of each other and not connected. The tunnels with the manhole-like entrances may have been created by ancient snakes, which often grew to be several feet in diameter and around 50 feet or 15 meters long. Some of the Erdstall Tunnels may have also been created by giant rodents that create circular, long burrows, much like those of rabbits, wombats, or capybaras. The Erdstall Tunnels with arched ceilings closely resemble burrows made by foxes, possums, or other animals that sit on their hind legs as they scratch in a way that creates a pointed arch, indicating that whatever creature had created these types of Erdstall Tunnels likely had a similar body structure to foxes or possums. The megafauna that created some of these tunnels may have been the larger ancient ancestors of these modern burrowing animals, or they could have been an entirely separate extinct species, unlike any animals that exist currently. A wide variety of megafauna existed in the distant past when the entire Earth was more tropical, before the Great Catastrophe split the continents apart and changed the Earth's climate. These giant ancient creatures used to thrive in modern-day Europe, as well as in other regions around the world long ago. The reason as to why no one has been able to figure out for what purpose humans would have used the Erdstall Tunnels, or even how they were made, is because humans did not make them. Researchers often noted that the layout of the Erdstall Tunnels did not make sense for humans to use, and no archaeological evidence had been discovered inside to indicate that humans had used these tunnels regularly. As the principle of Occam's razor states, the simplest solution is often the best one. If these tunnels do not seem as if they would have been created by humans, then the most likely answer would be that they were not made by humans. Animals create tunnels of this variety all the time. The fact that these tunnels range so much in size, shape, and layout indicates that they were created by multiple different species for different purposes. These tunnels being unconnected also shows that they were each made by separate animals. And sometimes, different animal species even share each other's burrows, or move into the vacated tunnels of other animals once the previous occupant has abandoned their burrow. The new occupants then make additions to the burrows, explaining why some of the Erdstall tunnels have branching segments of different shapes and sizes. Long after the megafauna that created these tunnels went extinct and abandoned these burrows, humans discovered and explored them. But apparently, humans never saw any significant use for these tunnels, since there are no signs that humans frequented them, or even bothered to document them. It's even likely that humans in the past, such as during the Middle Ages, recognized that these tunnels were giant animal burrows, since they saw smaller animal burrows regularly. because they spent more of their time walking through forests and fields, where animal burrows and dens are. If they did recognize them as giant animal burrows, it would explain why they avoided them, and even tried to block off some of the entrances. And they did not think that the abnormally large animal burrows and dens were important enough to document, because they knew that they were just made by animals. It's also worth noting that some passages in the Erdstall Tunnels lead to a dead end with a shape resembling a ledge or a bench protruding from the bottom portion of the wall. One possibility is that rather than having been created as seats, these bench-like shapes could have been created inadvertently when the megafauna felt the need to suddenly halt their excavation. These animals would have dug from the center or the top of the wall first and moved downwards. And if they had stopped digging before clearing away the bottom portion, it would have left behind this bench-like shape. Another possibility is that these ledges could have been carved by humans for some reason, after these tunnels had been abandoned by the megafauna. As stated earlier, stones were also used by people during the Middle Ages to seal off some of the entrances of these burrows. Very few other alterations have been made to these burrows though, and for the most part, they remain the same as they had been when they were first created by megafauna long ago. The reason why people during the Middle Ages felt the need to block off the entrances of some of these tunnels is likely because they feared that dangerous animals could still be lurking inside. The Erdstall Tunnels have existed for several thousands of years, and rather than being creepy and dangerous, many of them were actually relatively cozy homes for ancient animals. If you would like to learn more about the variety of giant animals that used to exist, and how the environment used to be much different, refer to the previously published video on Shattered History. This video was produced with the generous support of my Patreon community: Debbie, Jeffrey Schellenberg, Joseph Thompson, Ablobonic, Adam Walker, Liam Flatley, The Biggest Birdie, and Nathaniel Lee.